Top five, top five, top five.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the countdown. The NFL season is over, which means we're turning our attention to the basketball court, and we're talking the top 5 NBA dark horse contenders for this year's championship.
And this is a complete list. Like, don't worry about where the teams are in the standings. We're also trying to make you guys some money. So where Vegas's opinion is also where our opinion is going to be based off to a certain extent.
Exactly. So obviously when we're talking dark horse, we can't pick the top team. So we cut it off at plus 1,500 or above, a.k.a. if you put $100 on the line, that means you're making $1,500 or more in return if they win it all. And so I think that cut out the Bucks, the Sixers, the Celtics, the Clippers, the Suns,
the Nuggets.
And the Nuggets, exactly. So those 6 teams, they're not dark horse contenders. They're the cream of the crop. But the teams on this list are the top 5 dark horse contenders for the 2023 NBA championship. And before we get into our ranking, we got to say this is sponsored by Fangear Nation. You can get great jerseys at a great price at the link in the description, fangearnation.com. Great NBA jerseys going on sale right now that you can get for the low. So with that being said, we're going to start out our top 5 with the Los Angeles Lakers. We're getting controversial right from the jump. When you have a guy like LeBron James, though, you're always going to be a title contender. Of course, this has been a very disappointing season for the Lakers, just like last year. But you got to think about why is it disappointing. When you look at it, Anthony Davis got injured again. LeBron got injured again. Westbrook and Beverly, some guys on the team weren't good fits, but they made a lot of great moves at the trade deadline to bolster their chances going forward. And if they can just sneak into the playoffs, because they're only like 4 games out of a top 4 seed right now with about 20 plus games left, if they can just get in there, are we really going to sleep on the king making one last run?
Yeah, and the West is a tight-knit group. I mean, you look at the 3 seed to the 11 seed, maybe at the end of the year, it might be separated by 4 games. And the Lakers, like you said, Rob, they battled injuries. They have a brand-new coach in Darvin Ham, who's never coached an NBA game as a head coach prior to this season. So there's a lot of things that they've had to get over as the season's gone on. Obviously, there's been issues with Russ. There's been milestones like LeBron's been focused on. There's been all types of distractions, and it's always difficult when you're in Los Angeles. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they made massive moves at the trade deadline. Maybe not massive, but they changed their whole rotation, their whole top 10. They added Rui. They added Malik Beasley. They added J.F. Vanderbilt. They added D'Lo, which is probably the best player of the 5. And they added Mo Bamba for some reassurance at the center position. Obviously, they lost some players, Patrick Beverly, Thomas Bryant, Russ, as we stated before. But they really got a strong 10. And like we said, you can't count out LeBron. You can't count out AD. So Lakers really got a chance. They could win the ship. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. I think of all the teams in the league, the Lakers probably improved the most at the trade deadline when you factor in all 5 of those additions, and the team just wasn't gelling so far. They need a shooter. Yeah. Like we all know, Rob Pelinka, you got to go get some shooting, and finally he put one of those first-round picks on the line, brought in those guys like D'Lo and Beasley. Rui can shoot pretty well. Even Mo Bamba has some three-point ability to him.
That's how you win with Bron.
Right, exactly. Surround him with shooters, and so they finally did that. And so they have the roster around him, and I think it's really just going to come down to if LeBron can still, bring back that peak LeBron when it comes to playoff time, and we'll see if they're really able to do it, because there's been a lot of adversity that they faced these last 2 years, but they have championship pedigree out there in L.A.
Absolutely.
And so moving on to number 4, we went from LeBron's current team to LeBron's old team, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Brandon.
Cleveland, this is for you. The Cleveland Cavaliers have the number 1 defense in the NBA. And even though this is the NBA, defense might not be looked at the way it is in the NFL, but there's not been one team to win the NBA Finals that has not finished with a top 10 defense in the league. And the Cavs, they might not have the most exciting offense. They might have one of the slowest paces in the league. But when they play one of the best defenses in the league, there's a stat that says whenever the Cavs play a top 10 defensive team, they have the best record in the league, they have the second best offense in the league, and they're just near the top in almost every stat. It's point differential, the whole 9 yards. So that basically means when the Cavs are in a playoff caliber situation, they play to the best ability. So, I mean, the Cavs could be a scary team, the most elite defensive team. They got 2 7-footers that are really shutting down the paint. Teams do not want to play Cleveland, and obviously the East is top heavy. They got those 3 big teams: Celtics, Sixers, Bucks. But I mean, the Cavs match up pretty well with all of those teams, and if they continue to play great offense versus the best competition, and they start shutting down some of these top tier teams, they could be a true problem.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing the Cavs have going for them is just that lockdown defense, and they finally added that superstar back to the mix in Donovan Mitchell, who's had 71-point performances and having an all-NBA caliber season, leading that team to where they are today of being a top 4 team in the East, looking to have home court advantage for the first time since LeBron was there. And the only thing holding me back from fully going in on Cleveland, or why the bettors watching this might not want to put their money on Cleveland, is just the lack of experience. Like we've seen time and time again, when it comes to the playoffs, you need that playoff experience from the past to be able to go and win those games. And when you have a young nucleus like Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, all those guys that don't necessarily have that playoff experience, it was so crucial for a guy like Kevin Love to be there, and so they dropped him. They got Danny Green in there, who has some of that as well. But it's really those main guys who are taking those shots at the end of the game that really you want to have proven playoff experience to be able to just know, hey, they're going to be able to get it done. They know what it takes to come through in those high-pressure moments, and that's just something we haven't seen from the Cavaliers. So it's just going to be a test if they can really move past those big three like we talked about of the Sixers, Celtics, and Bucks, who all have that in place.
Yeah, Rob, that's a great point. I mean, you think about the playoff experience on that team, Donovan Mitchell might have the most, and I don't remember the Jazz having much playoff success at all.
Right.
So, I mean, Donovan Mitchell's only 25, 26 years old. It's his first year on the team, and he's bringing the most playoff experience to that team. It's going to be a tough sledding for Cleveland.
Right, and it's his first year, so lack of continuity there might show itself in the playoffs. But moving on to number 3, we go from the Cavs to the Mavs. Down there in Dallas with Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, probably the best offensive duo in the league right now. And it really all starts with Luka Doncic, though. Like, when you have a player of that caliber, you're always going to be a championship threat. That's what led them to the Western Conference Finals last year, when not really many people saw them getting there because of the lackluster supporting cast they have. But they made sure to fix that this year. They went and got Kyrie Irving, which is such a huge addition for them, because obviously when you have a guy like Luka Doncic, you're going to want the ball in his hands, right? But when he was off the court, I think there was a stat that they had the worst plus-minus of any team in the league between the difference of him being on the court, being off the court. They were like 0-7 when he doesn't play in the game. So they needed someone to be able to carry the offense when he's not there. And that's exactly what Kyrie Irving can do. Just an absolute wizard with the ball in his hands, able to make plays and get people in the right position and just orchestrate an offense the way you want to orchestrate it. So the question for them is just going to be on the defensive end, which might lead to some problems there in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's looking a little sus on the defensive end. The Mavs really don't have a top-tier defender at all. They had Dorian Finney-Smith, who is a top-tier defender, but
no doubt,
even when he was on the roster, the drop-off after that is absolutely massive. And, Rob, like you said, this team needed to make big moves. They got Christian Wood in the offseason, who's a Sixth Man of the Year candidate, despite the injuries. And they went out and got Kyrie. And the problem with Luka Doncic and the way that the Mavs were operating, he had by far the highest usage rate in the NBA. And the second highest on the team was Spencer Dinwiddie. And, yeah, Spencer Dinwiddie was a good player. Yeah, he's played good this year. But if Spencer Dinwiddie is your second best option to put the ball in the hoop, your team's not going anywhere. You have no chance. And so you take Kyrie and plug him into the fold. And yeah, Kyrie has that reputation. For some reason, the NBA, or not even the NBA, just the media is pushing this reputation on Kyrie. But at the end of the day, if you watch Kyrie Irving play basketball, he's an amazing second fiddle. Like, he doesn't have to be the second fiddle to Luka Doncic on any given night, but if you watch Kyrie play, he does a really good job of playing off ball. He does a really good job of giving it to a scorer and just moving out the way and chilling for a possession or two. So I think Kyrie is a really good complement to Luka Doncic, not only because it takes the ball out of his hands, not only does it diminish the stress and the load that's on Luka's shoulders, but he's actually a very good teammate and a very, very good mix.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions about how they're going to fit with two guys that need the ball, playing with only one ball. But, I mean, we saw it work in Cleveland. I mean, I think one of the most ball-dominant players of all time is LeBron James, and we saw Kyrie Irving be the difference in them winning a championship, hitting that big shot, bringing that clutch factor to Dallas, and also him kind of carrying the offense throughout the game. Like, Luka Doncic's probably going to be able to play, 40-plus minutes in the playoffs, but he can't play all 48. So those 8 minutes that he's not in the game, those are crucial, and that's when Kyrie Irving's really going to be that impact player and allow kind of Luka to not exert all of his energy, be more ready to go in the moments of the end of the game. And now you have two kind of clutch scorers. I think they're going to figure it out on offense, but it's just going to be the defensive end that we're going to have to see if it's going to play out well.
Absolutely. So we went from a defensive stopping team in the Cavs to an offensive heavy team in the Mavs. Who we got at number 2, Rob?
And then at number 2, we got the Memphis Grizzlies, Brandon.
Memphis. The thing about Memphis is a very good team. Like Ja said, I'm not worried about anybody in the West. Obviously, that was prior to the Phoenix move for Kevin Durant and Kyrie coming over to the Mavs. Bold statement. But when you think about the best teams from top to bottom in the Western Conference, it's hard to say the Grizzlies aren't the best team by far. We know the Lakers made some very good additions. They have a very strong 10, but that Mavs unit is very, very, very tough, and they have plenty of continuity as well. I think Memphis is a very scary team. The city is completely backing them. Hype all the time, always dancing, Jaws jumping through the gym with this limitless bounce. I think that's a very, very scary team, a very, very unselfish team, which can't be understated enough.
Yeah, the Memphis Grizzlies just kind of have this like moxie to them that a lot of people rooted for them. Now it's kind of starting to turn against them. They're kind of quickly becoming one of the most hated teams in the league with the whole Shannon Sharp stuff and Dylan Brooks and Donovan Mitchell getting into it and all these different things. But I think the way they carry themselves, I think is actually going to help them a lot in the playoffs, because when you're talking about those type of games, those game 6s on the road, those game 7s, those kind of young teams aren't typically able to win those games. But the way the Grizzlies carry themselves, they almost expect to be there. They expect to live in those moments. They expect to come through when it matters most. Yeah. And when you talk about a guy like Ja Morant, who's just absolutely fearless, already a superstar in the NBA in just one of his first 4 years, and he's clearly a guy that can lead a team to a championship, and they have the right pieces around him. They have the best shot blocker in the NBA. They have quality D and 3 pieces with Dylan Brooks and Desmond Bane, and they really have a solid all-around team that just complements each other very well, and adding Luke Kennard to give him some great shooting off the bench. So it'll be very unique to see a team like this who is so young, so quickly emerging into that title contention picture. They're one of the top seeds in the NBA, but of course these odds don't see them as being one of those top teams, but that's where you can get the value from and take them as a dark horse to win the title.
Don't forget, the Memphis Grizzlies are the 2 seed in the Western Conference right now. They're not in the midst like the teams between 3 and 12 right now. They're solidified in the 2 seed at this point in the season by 3, 4, maybe even 5 games. So this is a team that is entrenched and has a chance to have home field advantage throughout most of the playoffs. So watch out for Memphis and a very hungry playoff-determined city.
Exactly. They're at the top of the West, but the team we're talking about is actually at the bottom. At number 1, we have the Golden State Warriors. And if you've been watching basketball for the last 10 years, you know why they're number 1. They are this generation's dynasty. 4 championships in 6 years, 3 in 5 years, the whole thing. And they still have the same kind of nucleus that's been there through it all with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Now they have a guy like Jordan Poole, who we saw how effective he was in last year's playoffs. They have
Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, they have quality defensive players like Andrew Wiggins and Gary Payton and Jonathan Kuminga to kind of help ease the load on the defensive side of the ball. And when you talk about a team like the Warriors, you know what you're getting. Like, unlike the rest of the teams on this list where maybe the Grizzlies can get over the hump, maybe the Mavs can get over the hump, maybe the Cavs can make it through the playoffs for the first time and, go to the promised land. Maybe the Lakers can finally get back on track. With the Warriors, you know what you're getting. You know they can make it. You know they can win it all. You know they have a guy like Steph Curry who can lead that type of team and be able to, win the championship. And when you're talking about the reigning champions, you can never disrespect those guys, especially considering they didn't lose any key players. So obviously they are not where they want to be right now at this point of the season. But playoffs, regular season, 2 completely different stories. So all they got to do is get healthy, get back on track, get a little momentum going into the playoffs. And is anyone really going to sleep on the Warriors when it comes playoff time?
Exactly. And I mean, at the end of the day, this is the same core that was in the playoffs last year, that won the finals last year. And a lot of people coming into the playoffs did not think the Warriors really had a chance to win it. You can never count out Steph. You can never count out Klay. You never count out Draymond. You can never count out the Warriors in general. But that team is not the most appealing team on paper. But what they do have is consistency. What they do have is experience. What they do have is the will and ability to know how to win championships behind the backing of Steve Kerr.
Big facts.
And this team finds a way no matter what. Yeah, they're at the bottom of the standings right now. They're barely in the playoffs, or they're barely even in the fucking play-in right now. Yeah. I'm so convinced the Warriors can find a way, not only on the defensive front, but to continue the output they're getting on the offensive end when Steph returns. Even though they've been doing decent with Steph out, Jordan Poole has really stepped up. Plays looked amazing. I mean, he hasn't looked this good since he's returned from his multiple knee surgeries. I'm really worried about the Warriors finding a way to slide all the way back up to the top of the Western Conference and wind up playing the Eastern Conference title contender in the ship.
Exactly. So if you're looking to make some bets on the NBA title contention, These odds are based off of FanDuel. Great place to bet your future bets right there. And these are the teams that could surprise and could make you a lot of money when it comes down to winning it all.
Take some of this information, talk some shit to your friends, but most importantly, man, go ahead and win some money. Like, these teams really have a chance of actually winning the NBA Finals. Yes, there's about 15, 20, 25 games left. It doesn't matter. These teams can find a way to turn on the switch at any moment in the playoffs or any moment at the end of the season. And momentum going into the playoffs is a massive factor, I promise.
Big time. And so that's how you can put your money. But for free, you can go to prosportsoutlook.com, put these in whatever order you want, rank them, share them with your friends, talk about who should be number one, all that great stuff. And this video is sponsored by Fangear Nation. You can get those jerseys at the link and get them for the low with the playoffs in mind, with your team, hoping to make a run. So thank you for watching this video. We're looking forward to the next one. NBA season is getting down to it.
We'll catch y'all. Before y'all go to that next video, smash that like and damn sure hit that subscribe button.